Around 23 centuries ago, Alexander the Great founded a new city along the coast of Egypt, a city that would blend the ancient cultures of Greece and Egypt into something truly unique. Every corner of this city whispered stories of knowledge and history. And fittingly, it was named after its founder, Alexandria. Among Alexandria's countless wonders stood one that still captures the imagination of historians and scholars: the Great Library of Alexandria. Imagine this: thousands of years ago, a library that reportedly held between 400,000 to as many as 900,000 scrolls and manuscripts from across the known world. It was considered one of humanity's greatest treasures of knowledge. The idea of such a library actually came from Alexander himself. Inspired by earlier libraries in Mesopotamia, he wanted to create a center where all the world's knowledge would be gathered and translated into Greek. One of his inspirations was the Great Library of the Assyrian Empire, built centuries earlier by King Ashurbanipal in the city of Nineveh, what is now modern-day Iraq. Alexander envisioned a universal library, but he never lived to see it built. After his death, his half-brother and successor in Egypt, Ptolemy I Soter, took the idea forward in the 3rd century BCE. Under his rule, scholars from Greece and beyond were invited to Alexandria to teach, translate, and expand the boundaries of knowledge. Some of Aristotle's own students, Aristotle, of course, being Alexander's teacher, were brought to this library. The head of the library was also one of Aristotle's famous disciples, and its philosophy and structure were deeply influenced by Aristotle's ideas of organized learning. But here's the question: how did a brand new city like Alexandria manage to gather hundreds of thousands of manuscripts in such ancient times? The answer lies in an extraordinary royal effort. The Ptolemaic kings maintained a whole team of scribes whose only job was to acquire, copy, and translate books. Any book that entered the kingdom, by ship, trade, or scholar, had to be brought to the library. If it wasn't in Greek, it was translated into Greek by expert scribes. Sometimes the books were purchased, sometimes copied, and yes, sometimes even seized by force. It's said that some volumes from Aristotle's personal library eventually found their way into the Library of Alexandria. King Ptolemy himself was passionate about collecting knowledge, and people would often bring him rare works as gifts or to earn royal favor. There's even a fascinating story from the time when Athens was struck by famine. The Egyptian rulers took advantage of the situation to purchase an enormous collection of rare Greek works and transfer them to Alexandria. And here's the most surprising part: every ship that entered the port of Alexandria was required to be searched by royal officials. If they found any scrolls or books on board, they were confiscated and sent to the library. There, scribes would make copies. The original would stay in the library, while the copy would be returned to the ship's owner. This same method was even used to acquire priceless works from Greece itself. The Egyptian kings once borrowed a vast number of rare manuscripts from Athens after depositing a huge sum as security, what would amount to millions of dollars today. When the copies were finished, instead of returning the originals, they simply sent back the duplicates and forfeited the deposit. That's how serious they were about building the greatest collection of knowledge on Earth. Under the Ptolemaic dynasty, Alexandria became a global center of learning. Scholars in philosophy, medicine, mathematics, astronomy, and literature gathered there to study and debate. The research complex wasn't just a library, it was a living community. There were grand marble buildings surrounded by gardens, dining halls where scholars ate together, and even royal family members who were tutored by the library's resident teachers. Medical research was also conducted there, and it's said that dissection of bodies, including those of prisoners, was carried out for scientific study, something extremely rare in the ancient world. A branch library was also built, possibly for the public, which housed over 40,000 scrolls. Alexandria was, without doubt, the beating heart of human knowledge at that time. But then came the tragedy. The destruction of the Library of Alexandria remains one of history's greatest mysteries, and possibly its greatest cultural loss. No one knows for certain how or when it was destroyed. Over the centuries, blame has fallen on different people and events. Some historians point to Julius Caesar. In 48 BCE, during a conflict in Alexandria involving Cleopatra and her brother Ptolemy XIII, Caesar ordered the port set on fire for strategic reasons. That fire, many believe, spread and destroyed part of the Great Library. Others blame the Roman Emperor Aurelian, whose war with Queen Zenobia in 272 ECE brought chaos and destruction to the city. Some claim the library suffered heavily during that conflict. Another major event occurred in 391 CE, when the Roman Empire officially adopted Christianity. Religious riots broke out in Alexandria, and many pagan temples and learning centers, including the Great Library, were attacked and destroyed. Then, in 415 CE, a tragic event involving a Jewish scholar marked another blow to Alexandria's intellectual life. When he refused to leave the city after being ordered to do so by Christian authorities, he was killed, and the remaining research centers were destroyed. Later, some Western historians even blamed the Muslim conquest of Egypt in 639 CE, claiming that the library was burned on the orders of Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab. But most modern and neutral historians reject this theory entirely. They point out that the story surfaced centuries later and was likely created by Christian sources to deflect blame for the earlier destruction. Modern researchers believe that no single event wiped out the Library of Alexandria. Instead, it was a gradual decline caused by neglect. After the early Ptolemaic rulers, when the Romans took control, royal funding stopped. Without financial support, the scholars left. The manuscripts decayed in the humid air of the Mediterranean, and over time, the once great library simply faded into history. You see, ancient manuscripts written on parchment or papyrus couldn't survive long in Alexandria's climate, unless they were regularly recopied and maintained. Once that continuous effort stopped, the collection slowly perished. Interestingly, even Alexander the Great's own body, which was being transported back to Greece after his death, was intercepted by Ptolemy and buried in Alexandria. The city also became home to the famous Lighthouse of Alexandria, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, built under Ptolemy I and II. It stood over 300 feet tall, with a massive flame burning at the top to guide ships safely into the harbor. The Ptolemies used monuments like the library and lighthouse to display the supremacy of Greek culture in Egypt. They wanted to show the world that Alexandria was the true successor to Greek civilization. This also led to competition between different Greek kingdoms over cultural dominance. At one point, when another Greek dynasty tried to hire one of Alexandria's leading scholars, the Ptolemaic king had the scholar imprisoned and banned the export of papyrus, the very material used to make scrolls, to rival kingdoms. So in many ways, the Library of Alexandria was both a political tool and a monument to knowledge. The rulers used it to assert power, but in doing so, they unintentionally preserved humanity's wisdom. The library wasn't just a chaotic collection of scrolls, it was a carefully organized institution, the first of its kind in history. The scrolls were categorized into 3 main groups. The first held the most authentic and verified works. The second contained maps, letters, and reference materials used to cross-check the first category. The third contained texts in other languages that were translated into Greek before being added to the main collection. Each scroll even had a tag, like modern library cataloging, listing the author and title to make searching easier. One of the key figures behind this organization was the scholar and poet, Callimachus. He created detailed catalogs, biographies of authors, and systematic classifications that still influence how modern libraries organize information today. Sadly, none of the scrolls from the Great Library have survived. But the legacy of Alexandria lives on. The knowledge preserved, translated, and shared there spread across civilizations, shaping philosophy, science, and history for centuries to come. Even though the Library of Alexandria itself vanished, the ripple of knowledge it created never truly died. And in that sense, the Great Library partially achieved what Alexander the Great had always dreamed of, uniting the wisdom of the world under one roof. So, what do you think really happened to the Great Library of Alexandria? Was it burned to ashes by invading armies? Quietly destroyed by politics and religion? Or did its knowledge simply fade away with time? Imagine if all of that lost wisdom had survived. How different would our world be today? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your theories in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey into one of history's greatest mysteries, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more fascinating stories that bring the past back to life. Because sometimes, the answers to our future still lie hidden in the ruins of our past.